So in page 1 of the Uniform Residential Loan Application, it covers the borrower's information. The reason why this is so critical is if you want processors to love processing your loans, then your job is to complete this application all the way through. And as a newer or someone that wants to get better originator, you have to master the 1003 because this is what will allow your loans to be processed quickly. So I'm going to show you guys some strategy and tactics on taking the best page 1 of a 1003 ever. Okay guys, so let's jump into learning how to take an application. And there really isn't any schooling or training for this. And it's funny because you'll get licensed and typically your company will give you systems training on how their system works, but it's a uniform residential loan application. So every company uses this document in order to take a loan. It doesn't matter if it's for a VA loan, for an FHA loan, for a cash out loan, it's all based on this same platform. So the better you can get at taking the application, the better you're going to be. So I'm going to show you how I take an application, and I'm going to walk through and I'll do a little bit of role playing for how I talk to a borrower. Here's the most important thing. You want to keep your time on the phone when taking applications to roughly 10 minutes, maybe 15 at the most. But the more time you spend on the phone doing this, the more tenuous the process is going to feel for that customer. So you want to fill in on the phone as much information as you can, but go as quick as you can. And use this application to build rapport, to build trust, to build know-how. And the information in this application is so critical because it's going to give you the necessary tools and data to take care of this customer for life. So I've got on my screen that you're seeing a template. It's a fill-in application. And there's 3 basic ways you can take an application for a mortgage. Besides being on the phone or in person, there's 3 different ways you can put this into an application. The first one is by hand. So I've often, because I try and go really fast, take this application, and if you want like a dummy application, just go on Google and just Google residential loan application or 1003 fill-in form, and there's many varieties of this form. So you can print them out and keep them with you. And if you're going really fast and you'd like to write in and fill in later, I do that often. That'd be one way to do it. The second way would be something like you're seeing here, where it's a fill-in form that you're typing into. And the third way would be direct into your system. Meaning you're in your operating system, you're in your loan operating, whether it's Encompass or Point or some other proprietary software at your lender, and you're just filling in the information within the system. And you can either do it yourself or you can send your client their online application and they can do it. So before we get started, let's recap the 3 ways you can take the application. By hand, number 1, fill-in form, number 2, or within your company's system, number 3. So I'm going to use a fill-in form because it's very simple to see and you can follow along with me. So let's start. Let's start with a borrower, and let's call his name on my fill-in form John Smith. And let's say that he is not married, so there's no need to have over here a co-borrower. If John Smith is married or has a co-borrower, their information will go right here. But let's say for the purpose of this, it's John Smith. Next, what kind of loan are we applying for? VA is for veteran. FHA is for Federal Housing Administration. Conventional is for your traditional conventional loan. USDA for rural loans, or other, which could be home equity credit line, commercial, it could be non-QM, other exotic loan products would go here. You don't need to worry about case number or lender case number for the purpose of the application. So borrower's name and then loan applied for. Let's say this is conventional, okay? All right, John Smith, so you're applying for a conventional loan. Most of the time, you don't need to confirm with the borrower what kind of loan they're qualifying for. You just know based on talking to them what they're going to qualify for. So you click conventional. Let's say loan amount. Let's call it $250,000. Now, interest rate. oftentimes you're not going to fill that in up front because you don't quite know what rate they're going to qualify for. So this is the section you'll come back into later to fill in. But just for the sake of just showing you how it works, I'll put in 4% as his interest rate. Number of months, let's say he wants a 30-year fix, so I'll put 360. Let's say it's a fixed rate loan, so I'd click right here. Now, street address. Okay, John Smith lives at 100 Main Place, and that's in Newport Beach, California, 92660. It's a 1 unit. When you're filling out the application, you don't need to go in and fill out the legal description of the property. That'll come from when you have the title report. Year built, that's important. We'll call it 1960. Purpose of the loan. John's doing a purchase loan, so I click right there. This will be a primary home. I click right there. Now, this says complete if a construction loan. Nope. If a refi loan. Nope. Title will be held in John Smith, unmarried man, sole and separate property. The options for this, typically in your system, there'll be drop downs. So either sole and separate, it could be community property, it could be held in a trust. In this option, I'm going to check sole and separate property. Source of down payment, we're going to say cash on hand. Now, this is the most important part, the borrower information, section 3 of your application. So let's say, again, name is John Smith. You want to be aware that sometimes he might say his name is John Smith, but maybe his name is Jonathan Smith. Maybe it's John J-O-N Smith. So you always want to be very careful about asking the borrower, how do you legally spell your name? Because in this section, if you spell it wrong, you could really mess up the whole process of the credit report and how the inquiries go down. There's lots of verifications your team's going to have to do. So make sure you ask them, what's the legal spelling of your name? Now, one thing that I always often do when I'm taking my application, the most, I'd say, critical piece that a client is least common to give you upfront is their social and their birthday. So I often try and use this application as a way to build the client's trust. At the end of the application, I'm going to come back and I'm going to ask him for his social and his birthday. So I'm going to go through how to fill this in, then I'm going to come back and ask as if I'm talking to him so you can kind of get the feel of how you should flow through this thing. So we'll come back and fill this in later. Next, is he married, not married, is separated? We'll say he's unmarried. The difference is unmarried, which could be single or divorced, is currently what they say, single or divorced. Separated could be we are married but going through the process of divorce, and maybe like in California, there's a lag time between filing for divorce and the divorce actually being approved. Be careful because as you fill this application in, the underwriter is going to condition you accordingly. So if you click separated on here, then they'll probably ask you for a copy of the separation agreement. So be very clear with the borrower what this means. Are you really separated? Because let's say that John Smith and his wife, if he was married, were going through thinking about getting divorced. And they said, we're just separated, meaning we're living in different houses, but we haven't filed anything. If that's the case, I personally would mark him as married still, if that was his circumstance. Because if I check separated and go to underwriting, they're going to ask me for the separation agreement. And then if I come back and ask the borrower for that, but there isn't one, now I'm on the defense and I have to explain to the underwriter why he's really not separated. And there's a lot more verification that I'm going to have to put through to get this loan closed. So as you ask him for his legal name and his legal marital status, ask for how it's official, not what he thinks it is, but what's official. Next would be dependents. Well, it's not necessarily what you would think it means, because dependents could mean kids. I may have 3 kids, but no dependents because my kids are grown. So dependents are people living at my house that depend on me, and then what age they are. Next, I fill in present address. And then if the mailing address is different than the present address, I will fill that in here. Maybe he has a P.O. box because he lives at a remote area. If that's the case, you really want to explain through a letter of explanation why the present address is different than the mailing address. Because they'll want to know, is he really living there? And then if he's owned the property less than 2 years, you'll have to add in additional residences for less than 2 years. So if he's living at a home for 6 months, they'll ask for what about the previous year and a half. So you'll put in his marital status, how many kids he has, and then present address. So let's say that it's a purchase, and let's say he's buying a property at 100 Main Place, but he's living at a property at 101 Main Place. It's the home across the street. And let's say that he rents that property. You want to make sure you cover rental property for at least 2 years. So you have to cover at least 2 years of information. And you'll keep going now to fill out his employment information. You want to make sure when you're doing employment completion in an application that you are covering 2 years. So 2 years of living history and 2 years of employment history. Let's say he works at Amazon. And the address of Amazon is at 100 Amazon Way, and that's in Newport Beach, California 92660. So he's been on this job for, call it 5 years, in the line of work for 10 years, and he is a manager, and the phone number here is 800-888-8888. That is how you fill out the first page of the application. Notice as I was doing that, that could take some time because you're typing. So some people would prefer to write out, which is fine, and some people want to enter it into their loan system while on the phone with the borrower. My advice when it comes to that is only do that if it's a borrower you know very well is not going to get impatient by you clicking, because pages could take long times to reload and refresh, and there could be a system glitch or the system could crash or fail. That's why I like to have my applications taken outside of my bank's operating system, because I can't control the speed and the internet and the Wi-Fi and the system glitches and being kicked out of a system. Nothing's worse than taking an application, going to save it, and the system crashing on you, which is why it's important to have backup, which is why I like to take my applications either on paper or through some fill-in form that I know is going to be there in case the system kind of has a glitch. So that's page 1. I withheld the social and the birthday. I come back and fill that out last. Page 1 is critical because it identifies the type of loan you're offering the borrower, the type of information and the purpose of the loan. It includes the borrower information. It includes the employment information. That's page 1. Let's keep going. All right, guys, page 2. So if you remember page 1, we talked about the borrower and who their employer was. Page 2 is a continuation page of employment. So John Smith, the borrower, we have as being at Amazon for over 2 years. If he had been there under 2 years, we'd go back in here and fill out additional employment information. You have to make sure you have no gaps. Let's say, for example, he had been at Amazon for, let's change this to 1.5 years. Now, this is important. When you put 1.5 years, that's actually 1 year and 6 months. 1.5 years, some may think it's 1 year, 5 months, but it's how many, half of a year equals 6 months. So 1.5 years actually is 1 year and 6 months. So we're about 6 months short on employment. So I've got to ask the borrower, okay, you've been in this industry of Amazon retail for 10 years, but only on the job for a year and a half. So in recapping page 1 of the 1003, you are taking the borrower's name, their birthday, their social, where they live, where they work, how many kids they have, and all of these things that you talk to them about are ways to build rapport. The best way to get more business is to get people to know you, like you, and trust you. So page 1 of a 1003 is your get to know you borrower page.